PTSD is a bitch. My conversation, just a quick little spat on Facebook with my younger sister, it just triggered so many bad memories from that house. And it blows my mind how different the perspectives were. But then again, people weren't always around. Or people weren't always awake. Everything is hearsay from her mouth, or a lot of it is. And things are taken out of context a lot. Like, for example, when sciatica hit me, MS-induced sciatica. I mean, it's one of those things where I was putting my computer in the car, and as I was putting it in there, it was the 1976 MG Midget. I'm leaning over and I feel this pull, and I just know I gotta make it home. Like, I know that once I set that computer down again, it's not going nowhere. Sure enough, for the next 2 days, I end up crawling or limping over a cane or something like that, or a walker. True story. I lost my ability to walk and I was crawling everywhere. And it was painful. Unbelievably painful. Yeah, I would take a perforated eardrum again with an infected ear and hydrogen peroxide going down my station tubes. I would take that again over that sciatica. And yes, I've been through both. My left ear has a perforated tympanic membrane. So a tiny hole in there, and it was just... I had my head angled so often working in front of a computer at a certain angle that my muscles just tightened up too much. And that's an actual thing that can happen. Plus, I was always just tense. Like, the thing is, family doesn't know what I went through in Southside Chicago. They ain't got the first idea. Same thing with Arizona. They got no clue. And it's just one of those where I'm the black sheep through hearsay and people's opinions. It's been a long time since I earned black sheep. And then I've also been, like, there's a double standard in the family. And nobody wants to admit it. Like, that's the thing is, it's kind of like Black Lives Matter. You see these white folks, so, like, for so many generations, saying, it's not that bad. Well, that's because they never experienced it, so they can't relate to it. And if they can't relate to it, like if it can't happen to them, or if it didn't happen to them, it just doesn't happen. And it's a level of naivete. But even so, I've had a really damn hard life, and I can accept that. I mean, I knew this was going to come a little bit. I knew it was going to come. I knew it. And I knew I'd react like this too. Like the PTSD and all that. When I say PTSD, I mean, like when you wake up in the morning to sharp noises and really bright lights enough times, that gets you. When you're constantly watching your every word so it doesn't spark an argument or spark negativity. Like my mother, she's very critical. And she's also very depressed. And just like me, she projects it. Okay, I was walking around angry all the time for at least a year and a half. Until a doctor started asking me questions about depression. And at the first question, instantly I knew, okay. Like, self-diagnosis is not a good idea. And there's a good reason why. It's perspective. Writing this book gave me perspective. Before writing the book, I didn't think so negatively about my life. I didn't. I mean, I thought negatively, but not that much. But then after writing the book, I realized, wow, I've really been through some stuff. And it just absolutely kills me to see Autism Awareness Month knocked out. To have doctors and professionals, medical professionals, that work in the psychiatric field, reaching out to these different networks, and none of them are even interested in hearing my story. And I have an incredible story. I mean, Napoleon Dynamite moments back in high school, to in junior high, to joining the Marines, to starting a business. Like, I dominated being a video store manager. No joke, I actually, I never lost a contest, and I was leading districts and regions. No joke. I've got the emails to prove it still. And then, both of freaking post-nasal drip, man. I'm going to schedule with my doctor just so I can get some medication to stop this, because my throat's getting raw at this point. But then I go on unemployment, and I'm just trying to figure out, what the hell am I going to do? What am I going to do? I try to start the Date Doctor's Guide series, which actually, I mean, Date Doctor's Guide to Heating Up Your Kitchen, I'm still proud of that book. Thank you. It's a dating cookbook, but it also taught how to set the mood, how to set the ambiance. And keep in mind, I've studied Kama Sutra, Tantric. I've read all of the books, like The Game, or whatever it was, with Neil Strauss, or whatever his name is. I've read pickup player books. I've been obsessed with psychology since I was a kid. And so I was writing some books. Why not? I was a little cocky bastard. But for good reason. And yeah, I took my last $800 of unemployment, realizing I got nothing left after this. Like, I got my $800 in the actual unemployment account cards thing that they gave you, because this was right back when they started that, and at least to my knowledge. And so I had $800 on there, 867 if memory serves, but don't quote me. And then of course I had enough for like that month's rent and maybe some food, because you better believe I was on food stamps, which that was a humbling experience. To go on unemployment like that for the first time, to go on food stamps, that was humbling. That really struck my pride hard. But, it's why I love Taco Bell. There were times when my treat, because I got this $800, I went to Auction and Appraise, which it used to be called American Auction Co. before it closed under receivership. And it was a fun place. I like that auction. I miss it, truly, because that was a freaking awesome auction. And I bought my first pallet of Pentium 3s and Pentium 4s. I think like a quarter of them didn't have all the parts. They had no operating systems and no hard drives. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I got a few of them to start, to put in a few hard drives. I picked up a little box of whatnot from one of the other guys I met at the auction. And so I'm making it work, and then I sell it on Craigslist, back when Craigslist was free. I'm like, all right. So I go back to that auction. I'm like, I got this. All right, let me do this. And I'm doing like a little side hustle over at Taco Bell, because unemployment's running out, but that doesn't mean I can't, do a little side job and get some free food at a place I can just walk over to. Ultimately, stepped out of that because the computers kept getting better. And I met this guy named John. I'm not going to give his last name. I know, I gave too much. His name's John. Track him down. Like, but no, he helped me. He started me out with my basic knowledge of operating systems, hardware, but he told me where to look and what to look for. And then he gave me tips and he gave me advice. He got me onto some software, and he basically gave me the basic foundation, and then I taught myself to be A+ certified. Seriously, it was basically from scratch. And it was on the fly while selling the things I was experimenting on. And you have not lived until you've been working on it was a Dell Optiplex G2700, right? It was the old Pentium 4 non-hyper-threaded. It was the slim version. So it was like, this is my knee. It was like this tall, but it was like super, like it was the same width, tall and long as a regular computer. So tall, long, but the width, like a normal computer would be the size of this screen right here, and this one was like from this side to here. So it was like thin. It was the thin model. That's what I was trying to say. Anyway, I'm working on this dang thing, and I've been doing computers for about 7 months now, supporting myself, and I'm getting into this guy that leased me my apartment. He used to own a construction company, did 2 tours in Iraq. Really, really awesome guy. He becomes my first college tutoring student while I'm doing this. So I'm like, and he's also playing like cover for me, because you're not supposed to be slinging computers from your apartment. You know what I mean? Like, that's a home-based business. Like, So anyway, I get on there and I freaking secure the EMAC tip. But I don't have a car. And like, I ended up taking back that car and sending it back to the dealership because I didn't have a job anymore with the video stores, and I had a lease that I couldn't afford. So it had to go back. Point blank and simple. So pretty much all this auction stuff, I am paying people to take me over there, or paying people to like drive their truck. I mean, it's, if you got a will to do it, you'll make it happen. That's the story of my life. And so I'm slinging these computers, and I'm getting better at it. And I'm like, you know what? I want a gaming computer. So I built one. I took a Pentium 4 hyper-threaded. It was a 2.8 gigahertz, and I remember being able to play Devil May Cry 4. And it was laggy as all get out. I had a 6780, AMD 6780. It was the Power Color version. And it was a good card. I mean, it was legit. It had blue and black on it and whatnot. I mean, I remember that build because I built that build. And I think like 4 months later, when I decided to build my own official gaming rig, because I'm doing good. It's Christmas time, baby. And I'm selling these modded Wii's too. No, this was before I started selling the modded Wii's, but I used to sell those too. So basically, I have this huge, back when MU Paradise had every game, all the way back to ColecoVision and before. I had those. I still have those on a hard drive, because I believe in keeping record of that. I believe in keeping record of the old games and whatnot. And the ones that are forgotten, like Multiple Arcade Machine Emulator, MAME, M-A-M-E. I mean, if you ever heard that, like, MAME, or you see it on, like, an arcade unit, that's what it is. Multiple Arcade Machine Emulator, which means it can, like, handle that Neo Geo, it can handle the friggin' Capcom, it can handle a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So, or Sega, excuse me. Sega was huge. Oh my god, and I love Sega arcade games. Some are built for kids and some are built for adults, baby. I'm a lifelong gamer. But man, I start doing a custom build. And then I'm looking at it, and this guy John and I, we're still talking to each other. You know, this is before, you know, he decided to end the relationship, because I kind of was abusing it a little bit. I was giving him too many monitors and following up a little too often, because he was soldering capacitors on monitors, because I hadn't taught myself to solder yet. And I was, you know, digging into a couple different things. And man, you know how people say Microsoft and all that? I wish I would have. I was on the fence about Bitcoin. I just thought I don't have enough knowledge and enough time and all this other stuff. I could have gotten that Bitcoin ground level. I was there and I knew about it. But anyway, I'm building these computers and I'm looking at the engineering of it. And number one, computer cases right now suck. Like, from an engineering standpoint, we don't have a Mercedes. Like, at best, you've got like the high-end Chevys. Every time. So that's the equivalent in computer cases. Like, you can have a really, really, really nice GM vehicle, but you're not going to get top tier, because they're not investing the engineering to go into top tier. There is a reason that all of my computers, just through a few modifications, all of my computers, underload, meaning overclocked, and underload, meaning they're being pushed, running through a benchmark program, they still underclock the factory top tier built ones with the same dang processor and all of that. In fact, I used to take a huge pride. In fact, oh my god, I gotta tell you about Frankenstein. Alright, so I used to take huge pride in the fact that I'm using older processors, and all of my benchmarks, all of them, are beating the newest stuff out there, and I'm running cooler than them. Oh, let me tell you something. I'm sorry, I love dominating something through skill and studying. I love that. That shit is fire to me. Alright, so Frankenstein. There's a processor that I really loved and a motherboard I really loved, and so I kept those two together. Well, it was a Xeon processor, but it was one on a motherboard, Intel motherboard, if I remember right. It was Intel or Gigabit. No, Intel or EVGA. And it could handle i7s and it could handle Xeons. I chose the Xeon route, and I could overclock it. Like, that was one of the key things. And it could handle that G-Skill Ripjaws. Man, I think it was just 1600 megahertz, but it was the type that was really, really awesome for overclocking. It's the one that you couldn't find on eBay anywhere for like the next 2 years anywhere. Because nobody got rid of that RAM. It was perfect for overclocking. It was like top tier. It was one of those diamonds in the rough. And then you got... so I find these little parts and whatnot. I had a computer case that was barely holding it together. Like the back screen, I'm just like, oh, screw this. So I grabbed my tin snips and tip. And basically, like, the thing was held together by glue. And yeah, super glue. And as far as the screws go, I had 3 screws. And the other ones, again, super glue. You'd be surprised how well that holds up. I put freaking, it was the 212, Cooler Master 212, like Hyper. No, it wasn't the Hyper 212, but it was this one that's like a smaller version of it, but it's condensed, and it puts more air over the radiator, so it gets that extra cool on there. And then I would soup up the actual fans on that radiator. But there is a thing as pushing too much air too quickly, too. You got to understand the physics of it and the thermodynamics. But long story short, I built a computer out of super glue and spare parts, and I was outclocking the newest Alienware back in, I think it was 2008. It was freaking awesome. I love it. Wow. I just realized, I used to think that, okay, these 2 events and these 3 events seem like they're way too close together. And now that I'm thinking about it, we're in 2021. That was 2008. And I still remember everything clear as day. But no, I pushed that one. And you better believe I was working like 60 hours a week. And there were times when it was lean that the only thing I could afford was to go walk over to Taco Bell right by Safeway, get 2 cheesy gordita crunches with chicken, 2 sides of chipotle sauce, and then 2 large iced teas with light ice and 1 packet of Splenda each. Until I could afford Stevia. You know, I was living that rich life after that, you know, because I was selling computers, just tutoring. But no, believe it or not, tutoring actually led into business consulting, and I did quite well. There were months when I was bringing in $5 to $6 grand a month, easy, and blowing it all. Ultimately blowing it all. Like when there's ups, there's downs, and if you cling to something too hard, like I was clinging to that computer business too hard when I should have been jumping out when the Chinese came to Arizona. They were driving everybody out of the auctions, and we just needed to wait those guys out or team up. And I did get some of my competitors to conglomerate one of my suppliers so that we didn't have to rely on the auctions. And of course, I got slightly better discounts than they did. Like, seriously, this is me. This is what I did. Like, I had to find solutions from nothing. Learn computers from nothing, just trusting and believing in myself. I mean, it's... And I'm just barely talking on Arizona. I mean, in another video I talk about Black Lives Matter, and I'm going to wrap it up, but, you know, I'll just wrap it up now. Save it for another one. Night.